have time now to take clarifying questions. And here we have 50 minutes or so. We want to invite task force members who have questions to use the raised hand function to get into the queue. So this is the test as to whether or not you were paying attention to Sam's presentation at the beginning. But to raise your hand, you would go to the participant tab and click participant tabs. And then at the bottom of that, you'll see a little raise hand icon that you can use to, if you click that, your hand will be raised and that will let us know that you have a question that you want to share. So here I would ask any task force members who have questions to go ahead and do that. Raise your hand and we'll go through them in the order received. And again, one of our main goals is to make sure that all the task force members have a good feel for what the task forces will be doing and your role within the task force. All right, I'm not seeing any hands yet. Wait another few moments to make sure that folks are finding it. And if you're not finding the raise hand function, that you could just take yourself off of mute and jump in at this point.
Eric, I raised my hand.
Okay.
I got a question for David McDuffie. In the New York Bight, what's the maximum water depth for those new areas?
I would have to check. I don't know the top of my head. It is less than 60 meters. We did limit our call area to the 60-meter bathymetric line. So it is fairly shallow and would support bottom-bounded technology there.
Thank you. That's about the depth that I was expecting. No more than 65, but I see that y'all did 60. That's great. Thank you.
And thank you. That was Joe Orgeron. Thank you for that, Joe. I missed your hand before. And Joe, if you could click your hand again to put it down, since you have the control there. Are there others among the task force who would like to jump in? And yeah, I see Harry Vorhoff. Please go introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Harry Vorhoff with the Louisiana Governor's Office. I guess thank you for your presentations. I guess this is for Mr. McDuffie. But you mentioned in your presentation that there would be a NEPA review at the wind lease area step in the process. And I was wondering if there's any other steps in the process later, in the leasing process where NEPA attaches and there will be a NEPA review.
Yes, is the answer. The short answer. The NEPA review at the just prior to or during the leasing and prior to lease issuance is looking and is focused specifically on what the consequences of issuing that lease are. And so what that means is when we issue that lease, no installation of any facility is authorized until it's approved by BOEM. The lessee has an opportunity to present a plan to us for further approval. And at that point, there would be additional NEPA analysis which would likely be an environmental impact statement reviewing the construction and operations plan for a full wind facility. But the initial NEPA analysis is just looking at what are the consequences of issuing that lease, and that would be seafloor surveys conducted by the lessee, could be deployment of a buoy or a tower that would measure wind speed and other meteorological and oceanographic conditions. Really just a collection of data is what that NEPA analysis is looking at initially.
Just as a follow-up, how would that differ from the analysis, or is there a lot of similarity between the analysis done at the wind lease area step in the process?
All right. So once that construction and operations plan is submitted, then we will have many more details on what that facility would look like, the technologies proposed, the methods of installation, and that would involve NEPA, same process, just more detailed and comprehensive analysis through a full environmental impact statement. The initial NEPA analysis would likely be just an environmental assessment.
Thank you here for that question. I see a hand up for Chris Blankenship.
Yeah, thank you. This is Chris Blankenship. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I appreciate those presentations. These questions for David. Really appreciate how you went through the layers on how you overlaid all the different data streams and information to come up with those call areas. But it still looked like there was a lot of overlap on that tug and tow layer with some of the leasing areas in that one section. You said y'all are still working with the Coast Guard. I just wanted to see if you could expound on that just a little bit on how the conversation with the Coast Guard, or how y'all are still working on that to work with the tug and tow industry that in that overlap area.
Sure. So going back, if you can recall on the map, we did eliminate portion of what we call the Hudson South area because of that tow lane in the final wind energy area. So that was, at least for that area, how we were address that. Also, for a variety of reasons, there were 2 northern wind energy areas that we did not propose for leasing at the current time. One of the reasons being potential interaction with that tug tow lane. And then finally, we have one other remaining area that we continue to work with the Coast Guard as they work through their process to see if there's any flexibility there. Ultimately, we just issued the proposed sale notice for the New York Bight on Monday, in fact. So we're very early in that process before we get to a final sale notice and identify the final lease areas. So we are continuing to work with the Coast Guard and the maritime industry before we make any final decisions on that lease area.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris, for that question. I also have a hand up for Christopher Daniel. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Christopher Daniel from the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. I'm speaking on behalf of Dr. McCulloch, who is our formal designee. I think one of the primary questions we had is BOEM going to consider pursuing a programmatic agreement to kind of address its Section 106 concerns for the early assessment efforts that usually take place with many of these leases. We've seen great success with those, with several of the off-state wind farm application processes along the East Coast.
Dave, you want to respond to that in detail? I can provide an overview that whether we're going to be working in the Gulf of Mexico, and I suggest you talk specifically with the Gulf of Mexico representatives, but we're going to be working with the key individuals to determine which way to go forward. I don't think we're at the point where we're ready to make a commitment one way or another on a programmatic, but it has worked, as you mentioned, well on the East Coast, and we'll be working with the key members of the task force to decide which course of action to pursue.
Jim, I really don't have any additional thing to add there. I think I agree with everything you said there, and that has been the traditional practice on the East Coast and in the areas that we've developed there. So I think looking forward, that'll be something that is certainly.
And also, I would like to add also, we have Doug Jones, who's our tribal liaison also in the Gulf of Mexico directly. So he's going to be in charge of the tribal liaison aspect of it.
Yes, Christopher, Doug Jones here, as Joseph said, regional tribal liaison, as well as the regional preservation officer. And I would echo what Jim and David said. I don't think we've made any decisions on how that works, but I'm aware that that process has been what's been implemented in the Atlantic and Pacific, and is certainly something I'm talking with my colleagues in those regions on best practices for how to move forward with that.
Understand. I just want us to keep in mind any successes we've seen and build upon those with effective tools here. Thank you.
Certainly,
great.
thank you.
Okay, thanks, Christopher, for that. And Christopher, if you could put your hand down, would be great. Any other clarifying questions regarding the presentations that have been made? Please raise your hand. I'm looking, I don't see any up right now. Okay, seeing none, Idrissa, I just wanted to invite you again. I know that you've asked for any comments on the charter document, and if you could give everybody again the due date by which to provide those comments and to remind them who to submit them to.
Oh, yes, Eric, I believe that it's due on Tuesday, July 6, 2021. If there's any comment on the charter, and we will incorporate all the comments for the charter, and we're gonna, once we finalize it, we will post it on the BOM website for the Intergovernmental Task Force website for BOM.
Okay, and those are to be sent directly to you, Idrissa?
Yes, sir. So my email is Idrissa, which is IDRISSA .boube, BOUBE @BOEM.gov.
That's great. And we'll be sharing Idrissa's and Trishar's email addresses later on in the presentation for everyone's awareness. Okay, so I'm seeing no other questions here. I have 10:33. I propose that we take a 15-minute break and we'll resume again at, I'm going to say, 10, what would that be? 10:50. That work for everyone? Okay, we'll take a break and we'll see everyone again at 10:50. We'll start promptly at that point.